Hey everyone, I want to talk a little bit about diction, connotation, and denotation. So now that we're diving into rhetoric, I think the first step to understanding rhetoric, specifically written rhetoric, works that may be in the realm of an essay or a speech or an article, or even a longer work like a novel or a book. The key to that is understanding word choice, why authors choose the words that they choose. And the word for word choice, of course, is diction. So if you ever hear me say diction, if I ask you to explore or analyze the author's diction, I'm asking you to explore or analyze the author's word choice. And underneath that umbrella, a big part of diction is connotation and denotation. So first off, connotation is what you're going to run into much more necessarily than denotation. Denotation is just a word's literal meaning. What does it literally mean? Connotation is the word's emotional weight. And so oftentimes people say that connotation is the implied meaning behind a word, but I think once you get to these upper levels, especially in an AP class, you have to look at the weight of the word itself. And we're going to use some examples to show you what I mean. I have a list of words that have the same denotation. They essentially mean the same thing, but one word has more connotative weight, more connotation, more emotional weight than another one does. So let's take a look at those real quick. So, what has more connotation? Addict or fiend? Well, addict is, let me back up for a second. Both of those mean the same thing. But addict is a neutral term. Someone who is addicted to something is an addict. And if you call them a fiend, that's going to have more emotional weight to it. That's going to have, it's obviously much more negative connotation, but that's going to have more connotative weight to it. So the connotation of fiend is a negative one, even though it means the same thing as addict. All right, next one, brilliant or intelligent. Intelligent is the neutral word. That one, both brilliant and intelligent mean the same thing. They both have the same denotation, but brilliant has a much more positive connotative weight to it. So there's more emotional weight to brilliant. If somebody does something truly remarkable, it's one thing. Somebody probably won't go, wow, that was intelligent. They'll more likely say, wow, that was brilliant. And on the flip side, you can take a word and give it, just like I did with addict and fiend, you can give it a negative connotation. And so what's a negative connotation for intelligent? Well, that's easy, brainy, or know-it-all. It means intelligent, but you're saying it with a negative connotation instead of with a positive connotation like brilliant. Next up, thin or lanky. Thin is the neutral word. Lanky has the connotative emotional weight. It's negative. So somebody who is thin, if you wanted to say it in a negative way, you would say lanky. If you wanted to say it with a positive way, you would probably say lean or slender, perhaps. But they all mean the same thing. But they have more, two of those have slender and lanky have positive and negative connotation respectively. Next up, forceful or domineering. And I had a few people who didn't quite know what domineering meant. It meant someone who seeks to control everything. They try to control other people, control circumstances. They're very controlling. And they get very, very upset if things don't go the way they want them to. So forceful could be the neutral word, and then domineering is the negative connotative word. The positive one could probably be assertive. And when you look at a word, especially when you're writing, think about what would the connotative choice, if you wanted to give it a positive or negative connotation, what effect is that going to have? That's why we look at rhetoric. It's the effects of our words. What effect does my word choice have on the way that something is interpreted? Let's look at these last two words. For example, when you come home after a really long day, whether it's at work or school or whatever, and so your parents ask you, how are you feeling? You could just go, I'm tired, and they're probably going to say, okay, well, don't forget to start on your homework. But if you were to come home and say, I'm exhausted, they'll more than likely say, well, why don't you, lay down, take a nap or something. So they essentially mean the same thing. They have the same denotation, but saying that you are exhausted has more connotative weight to it. So those are the things that I want you to keep in mind when we look at word choice, when we look at diction. The connotation of a word is one of those first steps to being able to analyze rhetoric. So I'll go ahead and stop it here. And if you have any questions, message me.